Welcome, good morning, welcome to Sonrise Saturday. I'm so glad you are all here today. I want to make sure everyone has one of these contact sheets. First and foremost, the reason you have this is so you can follow up on if you have any questions, comments, or traumas, and so that you can download this 40-page quick start guide, which will get you through the first 6 months, first 4 months of Sonrise Saturday if you choose to implement a program like this at your congregation. So this presentation is about Sonrise Saturday. We decided to do Vacation Bible School a little differently at Culpeper Presbyterian Church, where I currently serve. And then the Holy Spirit took that desire to be creative and did something amazing with it. This presentation, starting from Scripture, because we always ought to, it's part testimony of how God created a covenant community, because Sonrise Saturday started as Vacation Bible School and then became, again, quite accidentally, a unique worshiping community for children in our community. So it's part testimony of how God created a covenant community, and then part instruction for how to live in that community. Just like the book of Exodus is, we get the people out and then we teach them how to not be slaves in Egypt anymore, but how to be God's covenant people. This is how God did something amazing and how you can do it too, or how you can be in a position where God can maybe also do that for you as well. Part 1, story. You can't necessarily, this is a chalkboard wall in the Sonrise Saturday classroom. It says, "I like Sonrise Saturday" in handwriting that is even worse than mine. So, Vacation Bible School is something with which many of us are familiar. It's something that most of us, looking around, probably grew up with. It was a wonderful thing for its time. It was an opportunity for faith formation, Christian education, teaching Bible studies and crafts and doing all those fun stuff. It was also summer childcare. How many among us went to this Vacation Bible School at the Baptist church, and then the next week at the Methodist church, and the next week at the Lutheran church, and then it was the Presbyterian's turn? And so you would get childcare for your kids throughout the summer, at least as many weeks as there were churches. And that was part of the function of Vacation Bible School in its day. It relied largely on stay-at-home moms and, to a lesser extent, teachers who were available during the day in the summer in order to make that model work. Now, part of the challenge is, as many of us know, that's not how the economy works anymore. We don't have as many stay-at-home moms. Teachers no longer have summers off. They're always doing professional development and other things. It's just more complicated. And at least at Culpeper, we were experiencing the issue of volunteer fatigue, trying to find opportunities to do something that wasn't, okay, the Baptist church bought this curriculum from group.com. The Methodist church bought the same curriculum from group.com. The Lutheran church is a little smaller. They're using last year's curriculum from group.com. And then the Presbyterians have the same one as one of these others. And so the kids say, I have made my fourth pottery thing this month. I'm really over it. And if you went first, that was fine. But if you went fourth, it was a little bit problematic. So it wasn't serving the faith formation needs as well as Vacation Bible School used to. It was harder on volunteers than it used to be. If you are here, if you're here because you wandered here looking for something else, then I'm grateful you're here. If you are here because you look at your church's Vacation Bible School and say, it just seems like it wasn't always this hard, you're not imagining things. It's harder than it used to be. The economy has shaped the way our volunteers can interact, and that has changed how Vacation Bible School can work. And other churches have found, and Culpeper tried this as well, doing evenings and then maybe doing one day or a weekend rather than a full week. So we're changing the model and the way all of that works because you're not imagining it. It is harder than it used to be. Going back to the Exodus model, right now, at least at Culpeper, Vacation Bible School felt like making bricks without straw. Because you got to go find the curriculum. You got to find all the volunteers, and they're not as, come on in. Okay. You don't have to come in. Attendance is not compulsory. Trying to be welcome. So you're not imagining things. Vacation Bible School is harder. It's like making bricks without straw. Churches are expected to have the same awesome product with the volunteers who have all the energy and the puppet show and the tie-dye and all the stuff that we used to have, but it's harder to get those things. And odds are another church with a bigger budget might already be doing the same thing and doing it better than we can keep up with. And then something happened as Culpeper was having conversations about, well, what if we wrote our own Vacation Bible School instead of buying one? We've got some talented people. This is one of them. This is Tammy Buckaloo. She is the Program Communications Coordinator at Culpeper Presbyterian Church, at least until Friday, a week from Friday. She was a second grade teacher before she came to come to the church. So she knows all the developmental stuff for kids, and a lot of this comes from her. That's why her contact information is on the card, not mine. If you want to know about the theology and the big picture, I can answer those questions. If you want to know how it works, talk to her, because I will just be asking her, and let's remove the step. So as we are starting to ask those questions at Culpeper Presbyterian Church, something happens in the world. I'll give you a hint. It happened after Vacation Bible School in 2019, before Vacation Bible School 2020. Exactly right. COVID changed everything in our culture, in our churches, and some things have gone back, but at least for a little while, we were liberated from the way we've always done it because we couldn't do it that way. We simply could not. And so this gave an opportunity, a clear moment in time when we could really ask, what if we did Vacation Bible School our way? What if Culpeper said, we're not worrying about Vacation Bible School as it's been packaged and as we all grew up with. We can't do it that way. What if we did it a way that does work for us? So one of the other questions that Culpeper was wrestling with, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later on. The other thing about Vacation Bible School is you get 1 week with the kids, and then by and large, you never see them again. Because they're members at the Baptist church, but mom had to go to work, so she sent them to yours so they would have someplace safe where they will be fed a snack and not get into too big of a mess. But they've got their own church already. And so we wanted to do something that was more ongoing, that allowed us to build relationship with these kids over time. And so rather than one intensive week in the summer, Instead, we went a different direction with it and did it one Saturday each month, Sonrise Saturday. We did it the fourth Saturday of each month. There's some exceptions to that. We'll get there when we get to the practical part. So the first one started June 2021. Vaccines are available at that point, but not necessarily widespread and not necessarily for kids. That's why in this picture, we've got a couple of kids, Thomas and David, who are wearing masks still. This is not from that first one, but this was building the temple, I think. And so I had just moved from one house to another. And so I had all these moving boxes, and so we built the temple out of used moving boxes. We capped it at 20 children. And that was partly because we were confident that we could maintain appropriate social distancing with 20 people. We weren't confident we could do it with 30, 40, 50, or however many decided to show up. We decided to do ages 4 to 11, which is basically elementary school, a little bit younger. Now, one of the things that this does, and we'll get to this again a little bit later, it changes the music you can use. Because an 11-year-old can read the lyrics to a song off of a screen, and some of them who maybe got band or choir stuff can maybe read out of a hymnal. 4-year-old, absolutely not. So that changes the music we can use because we can't assume the knowledge of how to read and how to follow along with those things. We also went with 3 hours. Come on in. We also went with a 3-hour time period that was done to manage the attention span of the children. At 3 hours, you are able to move through things well enough that you can keep kids' attention, but also get some actual stuff done. And that's why you'll see generally it's divided up into a number of 20-minute blocks. So this was the first Sonrise Saturday. These are the things we did. We have pretty much kept this model. It worked for us the first time, and even though we no longer have to have the cap of 20 children, that's been around where we've been. Anywhere between 6 at the low end, and I think 24 was the highest, plus teenagers and youth volunteers. So we're going to put a pin in this, because I'm not just talking about your VBS is wrong and you should do it differently. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is God did something amazing and took this, let's do VBS differently, and made it a worshiping community. So let's talk about worship. It's a worship and music conference. All of y'all are worship nerds, but I don't want to assume knowledge. We are here. Service for the Lord's Day is your typical Sunday service. Generally, you get in and that's what you've got in a typical Presbyterian church. A lot of our services here are based on that model, but we play a little loose with it. So, these are taken straight out of the Book of Order. You can go look it up in the directory for worship. W2, 3, and 4, I think, is where it is. So you've got your gathering. What are some things that happen during the gathering? Prelude, yes. What else? Announcements, yes. What else? Call to worship, yes. We've also got the Word. What are some things that happen during the Word section of a worship service? Read Scripture. What else? Prayer for illumination. Yes. What else? The sermon, the part I'm paid to do. Yes, the choir's anthem also counts as this. And the Book of Order also talks about a few other things. Those are on future slides. All right. And then we have the sending. What's sending? Benediction. Charge and benediction. Yes. Postlude, closing hymn, those kinds of things. So we've talked about these things. Again, this is straight out of the directory for worship in the Book of Order. If you don't have one of those, there's a bookstore. So the prayer of confession and forgiveness is in there. And then we get to the Word, and it's many of the things you've named. Public reading of Scripture, proclamation, which can take a bunch of different forms, affirmation of faith, prayers of intercession, any offerings. In my worship classes in seminary, these things were responses to the Word. We added the 4th section, responding to the Word before sending, and these were in that. And then we have the sending, which is the closing hymn, the benediction and charge. and then service in the world. So that's your typical worship service. There's flexibility in it, but does everybody basically recognize their home church and what I've laid out? Woo, Presbyterian. Here's Sonrise Saturday. Gathering music. Activity 1, which can be anything, usually involves things where the paint needs time to dry. Bible story. Now, the way we do the Bible story is we don't assume that the kids can read because we go down to age 4 and up to 11. And some of our 11-year-olds are not as good readers. So this is where we use our teenagers. They act out the Bible story, which is both presentation of the word and the interpretive work, and drama is listed as a way of doing proclamation in the Book of Order. Activity 2, that's the one that doesn't require time for glue or paint to dry. Often it's drawing or making something. Sometimes it's various kinds of crafts. Then everybody's favorite part, snack. Snack does not have to be complicated. Culpeper Presbyterian Church gets very small frozen pizzas and does a dozen of them and cuts them into slices for the kids to have. We also do Little Debbie cakes, but your mileage may vary, but that's what we do. Then games, which is everybody's other favorite part. And then we have the closing music. So if we look at these and compare them, we've got these Sonrise Saturday activities. And one of the things that I noticed, it's been a couple of years ago now, is that these items mirror very closely the regular Sunday worship service. So we've got gathering music, prayer, thanksgiving, and praise. And we've got the word, which is the Bible story, proclamation, which is the drama that I mentioned earlier, offerings, which is a very good analog for activity 2. And then we do the sending, which is closing spiritual songs. So when I noticed this parallel, that's when I started saying, what we're doing here is not just playing with kids. What we're doing is developmentally appropriate worship for children. Completely by accident, I just noticed the parallel. This was not done with intention. It's just that this, where we're managing the attention of children, and this, where we're managing the attention of all God's children, tend to have parallels. Now, if I did a 3-hour worship service on a Sunday morning, unless we had a snack. We're snack.
And games that could move around.
Yes, and games that can move around. So this is how I noticed that Sonrise Saturday had become a worship. However, the fact that we get together and worship does not necessarily mean we have created community. This conference is a great example of that. We have worship every day, but Montreat Worship Music Conference is a conference that's not necessarily worshiping community, unless you come back next year and next year and next year. The people that I've started to see again and again and recognize year after year, the people who I sing next to and pray next to and play trombone next to them in the instrumental ensembles, the presence of those people begins to be part of the worship experience. It's the regularity of gathering with the same people and building those connections that creates the communities that exist in Worship and Music Conference. Community is formed when loving one another becomes part of the worship experience. In a worshiping community, the presence of your neighbors becomes a way of connecting with the presence of God in our midst. Let me tell you about David. You can see his name tag. It's upside down because he's fidgeting with it. David has been with us pretty much since the beginning. He has joined us almost every week. He is the grandson of a friend of a volunteer. Very tenuously connected to the congregation otherwise. But he's been at Sonrise Saturday almost every week, or almost every month. And so he is not a child of the church, but he's also, he goes to the daycare and summer camp at the big Baptist church around the corner. And my son's there too during the week, and so they're in the same class, and they see each other, and they say, "Oh yeah, I remember you." They know each other from church, even though they're gathering at a church. And when David's family drives down Main Street and he passes our fellowship hall building, not our sanctuary, because I'll let it lay there till it gets it right. Not our sanctuary building, the historical one, but the building that houses Sonrise Saturday, he points to it and says, "Grandma, that's my church." Because for David, despite the fact that he has another church building that he spends more time at, the Sonrise Saturday worshiping community has become his church. And so he doesn't point at the sanctuary. He points across the alley at the fellowship hall building and says, "That's my church." He's a real special kid. This is the clearest example. But there are, among the 24 who have been there, at least half a dozen of stories like his. We have kids who have aged out of the 4 to 11 and have taken on the leadership role with the teenage group. That's happened with at least 2 kids, Cora and Victoria. And so we have seen that kind of intergenerational movement of the person being served to the person serving that you see when you agree to the elder nominating committee or agree to serve on a committee or something else that y'all are doing when you join the leadership group. We've had 2 kids who have joined that. So we're seeing those same kind of movements, but it's happening among children. Now, when I lifted up, go ahead and start the video. Turn it down a little bit. When I lifted up elements of worship, there was one part that was missing: the sacraments. So at our April 26th meeting, we got special permission from the session because the theme for the day was Jesus feeds his disciples. Is that right? And so we got permission from the session to do the sacrament of the Lord's Supper with the kids. It is one of the holiest moments of my career thus far. We all gathered around you may have heard one of them call it the big fancy table, which we set up just for this. You can see the elements here in front of me. And we all gathered together. This is a parent of some of the kids who, when we invited the parents, some of them stuck around. This is the only time we've had parents really come and participate. But she wanted to do communion with her kids, and I thought that was beautiful. We have, you can see I'm helping them out. I really cannot, because the camera angle doesn't show it, I cannot describe to you adequately how into it, how reverent, how attentive the kids were to this special moment. It was not a picnic with Jesus. It was the presence of God mediated through the community in the sacrament. It was so incredibly moving and beautiful. And if the sound were turned up higher, you'd hear my voice crack a few times during the Great Thanksgiving because of how these kids were more into it than the 80 and 90-year-olds who've been doing this their whole life. They were so invested. I'm so grateful that our church allows kids. Here's a grandparent of one of our teenagers. And so I'm telling the story and describing the process and doing so in a way that is attentive to the fact that they might be, like some of these kids might be Catholic and have different relationship with the sacraments. Some might be Baptist and a different relationship with the sacraments. But trying to do it on their level in a way that makes it as concrete as possible, but also talks about the mystery of faith that is present in communion. And it was absolutely not teaching about the sacraments. It was absolutely celebrating the sacraments. It was a beautiful and wonderful thing. This video is 25 minutes long. We're not going to watch all of it. But I wanted to show you, this is how we did communion together. The bread was birthday cake. As a way of showing this is a foretaste of the messianic feast of the kingdom of God. That idea wasn't worship words speak. I was at a Korean worship conference while I was in seminary, and they did a traditional rice cake that is their cultural equivalent of birthday cake. And I said, that's beautiful. I want to do that. And so I made my grandmother's pound cake recipe, did it in a loaf pan instead of a bundt pan, and that's what we broke, and that's what we served. The juice is grocery store brand grape juice. Wasn't anything fancy. You can't do wine with kids. Not more than once, anyway. This is the last time that I will have been at Sonrise Saturday. This was my goodbye to the kids. I've accepted another call to be the pastor at Aaron Presbyterian Church in Knoxville, Tennessee. Go Vols! So I know that they don't. And so they don't know that this is my goodbye. That's another reason why I had big feelings about it, is what a wonderful way to share love. This is Joyce. She bakes the pizza for us every month. She takes the frozen pizza, puts it in the oven, and yes. It's not from scratch. It's from the grocery store. She would do it if she's one of those. Joyce is the one who saw me sitting on the chairs up in the chancel, and they were, the uncomfortable wooden ones. And she said, that looks uncomfortable. And then she made cushions for both chairs and just did it. And so that's the story of how we went from how do we deal with VBS doesn't work like we used to celebrating the sacrament of the Lord's Supper together as a community. Which means we're on to part 2, instructions. This is the concrete where the rubber meets the road stuff. So we've had the testimony time. These are the laws, statutes, case laws, all that stuff that happens from Exodus 20 on to the end of the book. 4th Sunday of every month, except for May, November, and December. Why would we not choose these months?
You mean
Saturday. What did I say? I did say Sunday. I will correct that for 4:30. No. Thank you. Good catch. I'll correct that for the afternoon session. Y'all are here early so you get to see a little bit of how the sausage is made. Why would we not do the 4th Saturday in May, November, and December?
Holidays.
Yes, holidays. If you pick a 2nd or 3rd Saturday for your version of Sonrise Saturday, you will have other times when that work for you. But this didn't work for us because I think we tried it the first year to do it in November and nobody came. We had a few. So 9 a.m. to noon, that time really worked well for us. It also helps that Culpeper has a farmer's market in the summer and early fall on Saturday mornings. And parents said, oh, free childcare. And then they go to the farmer's market and have a great time, husband and wife, and connect as a couple, rather than having to also mediate around kids. The general outline, doors open at 8:30. Kids start showing up at 8:45, generally. We start with music from 9 to 9:20. I'm doing songs like Kumbaya, which is, you just change the verb. And I asked the kids, what are some doing words? There's a lot of running, jumping, skipping. But we start with songs like Kumbaya, where you can change one word and nothing else changes. Siyahamba, We Are Marching in the Light of God. That's another one. We had a bucket full of percussion instruments, at which point I would put in earplugs, not joking. Would put in earplugs, and they would march around and dance around and do all that stuff. But that's another one where we are marching in the light of God can become we are skipping in the light of God. And everybody can get that. We do a bunch of music like that. Activity time 1. Again, I said if the glue needs to dry, if the paint needs to dry, that gets put in the activity 1 slot. That's not always the case that needs to happen, but we have 2 crafts or activities. The drama in the middle that the teenagers during this time are rehearsing and present during this time. Snack is snack. There's lemonade, there's water, there's frozen pizza that's been baked. There are various other things. They really love the Little Debbie zebra cakes. We love giving them sugar before we take them to games. And then there's closing music. And this is the closing music and the benediction. There's a call and response version of the Lord's Prayer that was in, do any of y'all remember the New Song books that were big in youth ministry a bunch of years ago? It's in New Song 2, it's the Lord's Prayer, it's call and response. And because it's call and response, you don't have to know how to read. You just have to know how to repeat what you hear. And we closed with that song every time. And I wanted that to be kind of the anchor point for the month as they move on. Your congregation might choose a different one, but I have gotten great results with, this is our song that we're going to close with every time.
What collection is it?
New Song 2. There are 2 New Song books.
New S-O-N-G or S-A-L-M?
New Song, S-O-N-G. It's probably out of print at this point, but it's a good song. If you reach out to me, I can send you a PDF. Staff and volunteer requirements. This is, again, real rubber meets the road stuff. We had a Sonrise Saturday subcommittee. This is part of the Christian Education Committee, but because the Christian Education Committee has other things about which to be anxious, they let this group kind of do their own thing. It consisted of 3 people. Started with 3. That's right. And 2 of them were teachers, and one was someone who had great instincts for youth ministry. They had the passion for it, and they just went with it. They planned the events. They picked the themes. They occasionally asked the theologian in residence, what do you think about this as a theme? And they occasionally failed to that when I would rather they did. They did the armor of God one time, and all the kids came out talking about fighting the devil, and I was like, oh boy. I got my kid in trouble at school later. Program and communications coordinator. That's Tammy. Say hi, Tammy. If you have someone who's a 2nd grade teacher in your church, you don't have to pay them, but you should. They're amazing. Teachers are fabulous, and they don't get paid enough. Because Tammy was on the Vacation Bible School subcommittee that became Sonrise Saturday and then came on staff, she had an intimate knowledge of what was going on, and she was in a position to do the communications and marketing for the church. Because it's not enough to just say, we're doing this thing in the bulletin or your church newsletter, especially if you want people who aren't part of your church to come. The only way people who are not part of your church will come to your church is if you invite them. They're not looking for programming. Everyone's overscheduled. You have to invite them. Pastor, that's me. Providing some theological guidance. I also happen to play guitar, so I did the music. So I am actually both of these. But if you have another music leader or a pastor who doesn't play guitar, you can split these out. Drama leader, this is the person who had good instincts for youth ministry. They kept the kids involved, helped them figure out how to do something that was both faithful to the text and silly and fun for the kids. Additional, this group, these are the folks who are kind of involved in prior planning. This next page, these are the people who show up on the day. They don't have to attend any meeting ahead of time. We do require a background check and to be familiar with the child protection policy. Teen volunteers, they show up, they help with crowd control, and they do the drama. Registration volunteer sits there with the paperwork and says, oh, David, it's so good to see you. Here's your name tag that you made last week or 3 years ago, and making sure that everyone is aware of what's going on. Snack volunteer, that's Joyce. She makes the pizza, she puts it out. Sometimes the teenagers come and help her, but we often had 2 of those, but the last few months it's mostly just been Joyce who has been so faithful at it. If you love children but are a little afraid of them, this is a great job for you because you can stay in the kitchen. Activity leader. This is not just one of the people on the previous page. We had a Build It week, and none of the people on the subcommittee were really builders. So we called in some folks who did have a background in construction from elsewhere in the congregation who came in and helped us out and showed the kids how to swing a hammer as they built birdhouses. So this can be a one-off, or it could be something where you have an intentional craft just like Vacation Bible School did. Mentor / kid wrangler / chaperone. Self-explanatory. Make sure the kid doesn't jump out the window. Early team, these are folks who come on the day, they set up. Often they will come back later and tear down. This is an important volunteer that often does not get thanked. make sure you thank them because nothing else happens without them. You just don't see them. If you're an early riser who wants to support this ministry but don't want to give up your whole Saturday, this is a great place for you. Space requirements. You need a big room for music and games. We did our fellowship hall. You also need a classroom for activities because having everything in that big room can get a little distracting when you want them to focus. A separate classroom for drama so that the teenagers have a place to rehearse and put on costumes. And again, a lot of this is managing the attention of the children, and moving from place to place not only helps create that community as we are moving by stages throughout the day. Again, we're back to Exodus. But it also helps manage their attention. We're going through these slides really quickly. And a lot of this is you can find in this thing that's QR coded in the 60 actually, right? 60 some pages. You're going to need basic school and craft supplies, a binder for record keeping. This is one of the brilliant things that one of our elementary school teachers, because if somebody decides that painting is not their thing, and they finish painting early because they just slapped paint on it instead of making it pretty, they need something to keep them from crawling up the walls. You can get chalkboard paint at the hardware store. You put that on a wall and you let the kids, when they're done, they just draw on the chalkboard wall. And that's a great thing to keep them in the room and out of the way and attentive at the same time. Signs advertising the event. We had sandwich boards and yard signs because we have a downtown location. Your mileage may vary. Disposable tablecloths. Please don't try and use Great Aunt Edna's white tablecloths for craft day. That's one of those mistakes that you only do once. So all of these you probably have in your Vacation Bible School closet at your church. If not, they're pretty easy to find. We talked about invitation and marketing. Facebook events are a great friend. The moms in your community probably have a Facebook group where they complain about local businesses or get excited about local activities, or where they just support one another. It used to be sewing and knitting circles that women would do. Now there are specific mommy Facebook groups. I'm not trying to be gendered at it, but this is where we've had good success. Facebook events to share local parenting groups has been very helpful. We blasted out to those. Occasionally we have paid a little money so that Facebook will boost it. We've not had great success with boosting it, but if you put it to the targeted group, you have good things. We'll put an article in the newspaper every now and again. Haven't gotten a lot of success with that, but we do that occasionally partly as a way of reminding the members of our congregation who still get the newspaper that this ministry is vital and growing. Member invitations. This is really, really important. David has a church because a member of our congregation told his grandmother that we were doing this program. That's why David has a church, has a worshiping community. And it would not have happened without that. You have to do the work of inviting your people and the people you want to have. Handouts for community events. I'm going to pass this around. This is what one of our handouts looked like. And anytime there was a Chamber of Commerce event, we had that. When there was a parade on Main Street, we'd set out water, hot chocolate, or lemonade, depending on the season, and pass those out. Yard signs I already mentioned. General tips and lessons learned. We made mistakes so you don't have to. Play to your congregation's strengths and understand your limitations. That's going to be different in your congregation. If there's something you're really good at, lean into it. If there's something that you are less good at, it's okay for a different church to do that part. But you have more gifts than you think you do. Does anybody know what this is? A membership pad, a friendship pad, a sign-in pad. All of you are wrong, because Sonrise Saturday completely stole it and turned it into a treasure hunt, scavenger hunt thing. Now, I will tell you, as a pastor for 11 years, I have not gotten useful information out of one of these pads once when it was a friendship pad. There was a guy in my first call who would always put a famous Atlanta Braves player in there, so I knew if Cal Ripken were in worship, it was actually Rob Grissom. but that's not actually useful information from a church standpoint. If you're still using these, I hope you're getting good results from them. I never have. So when Tammy said, hey, we have all these things that we took up during COVID, can we use them for something else? I said, please, let's not waste this resource of a durable pad that can get passed around by dirty hands. And let's use it for something else faithful rather than record keeping that is not getting us good information anyway. So I'll pass this around as well. Utilize the talents in your congregation. We have a pastor who plays guitar, so we did that. We have people with a background in construction, so we built birdhouses. We have painters. We have creative people that fits into crafts. We did a cooking day where they made the resurrection scones where you put a marshmallow in it and the marshmallow goes away so the tomb is empty, because we have people who can cook. Be flexible is another important thing. Sometimes you have a very well orchestrated idea and the kids just aren't into it because they had a little too much sugar or it's been a little too long since they've had sugar. And so be flexible. Remember that your purpose in this is not to serve your need to put on a good program. Your purpose is to serve the children and their needs. That's very important, and flexibility is sometimes a part of it. Some other things, I'm going to continue to pass things around. Yes, much of this is in the thing. So here are the goals for Sonrise Saturday. Show the children that God loves them, first and foremost. Second, show children that church is a fun and loving place where they are accepted and loved for who they are. You don't have to put on a suit to come to this service. Just come as you are. Third, create a space where kids can be kids, not little adults. They can be wild, they can be rambunctious. We have skipped music except for the closing Lord's Prayer song more than once because the kids were having a good time with games. And it's not about my desire to play guitar. It's about what do they need. Place where kids can be kids. We taught children how to play Foursquare, that playground game that many of us played growing up. None of them knew, and they learned it at church, which is wonderful. But it's a place where kids can be kids, and we needed to create a way for our volunteers to be active without being involved. Remember, I had those two slides. One was, here's what you can do if you have the resources and time and all that fun stuff to be involved, and if you want to support it but can only show up in the day, these are the right jobs for you. We needed a way to do that as well. All right, closing in on time, talking about some sample themes. Puzzle rooms. Jesus is with us when things are hard or can be adapted for any story or theme in the Bible, like parables, for example. And you just do puzzle rooms. And you can find those examples of that online. Building the temple. You saw the pile of boxes. They got it as tall, a little bit taller than me before one of them tried to climb it. And then it was a lot more like the Tower of Babel than the Temple of Jerusalem. Rock painting and hiding. Because we have a downtown location, we could paint the rocks with a little bit of like a cross and God loves you, something like that. And then we took them all around town. And so we got outside the building as well. Jesus is the Rock was another theme for that. Glow party. That was just a lot of fun. Space adventure. We took, are they tarps? Yeah. We took two large black plastic tarps, duct taped them together, put a box fan in one end, and made our own inflatable planetarium. And you can take a projector and plug your phone into it and do space on the ceiling of your planetarium. Tammy had a great time building that thing. That was a wonderful way of studying God created the heavens because they could go somewhere and do that. Christmas, which we do in July because we can't do it in December. And December is such a crazy time for most family schedules. They don't actually get to engage with the story of Christmas. So you do it in July and then December rolls around and they know it a little better. Learning discipleship from the disciples. We have a handout for that. We made little journals for them to illustrate and to talk about. I'll pass this around. And I think that's in the quick start guide. Similarly, we also had one that was Heroes of the Bible that worked very similarly. I'll pass this around this way. You saw the kids crawling under the tables in the video at the beginning with the balloons. That was an obstacle course. God is with us when things are difficult, like the missionary journeys of Paul. That's also where the maze was at the beginning, where Allura, who is the granddaughter of our choir director, we did some planting seeds, and Jesus eats with his friends. This is the one where we did communion. So that's enough out of me. Now we're going to hear from the kids. I apologize if it's not real easy to hear. We're working with iPad speakers, but that's what we have. So.
I like how we do a game or like a fun activity. The snacks.
I really like just doing the crafts mainly. That was really one of the things I really enjoyed.
I like that we get to have fun and get to do a lot of games and run around. I like playing, running around, building the crafts upstairs, and I also like the snacks and the pizza and the food we get. Snacks.
You like the snacks? What else do you like about Sonrise Saturday?
I'm gonna try drawing. The snacks.
Is there anything else?
The games.
The craft.
My favorite thing was like the birdhouses, and then like doing that, and then getting to hang out with people, and getting to know new friends.